Charlie Kirk from Turning Point USA, and keep watching His Glory TV.
And we want to welcome all of His Glory Nation from east to west to north to south. Welcome to today's Take 5. We have Rod D. Martin with us today for the first time. As His Glory Nation follows the war report every day. I use Rod D. Martin's X post just about daily. So we're going to get to meet the man behind the great unravelings, is the threads that he creates. All right, first, a couple quick announcements off the top. Silver and gold are mine, saith the Lord. Goldco, over the past 4 years, we've seen some tough times. We've had skyrocketing inflation, a surging national debt, market volatility, never-ending wars, bank failures, and our financial system can't be trusted. Precious metals like gold and silver have been used as a store of value for thousands of years. They've long been considered a safe haven asset for chaotic times. Goldco has helped thousands of Americans like you and me place over $3 billion in gold and silver. Today, we want to send you a free gold and silver protection kit. And if you act right now, you are offering you a unlimited instant match and bonus silver on qualified purchases. Go to the link hdngold.com to get your free kit today. Also, you can get the Ronald Reagan coin, my commander-in-chief when I was in the Marines. And I actually have that coin. It's a great coin. Chronology, this is my go-to every night for sleep. Yeah, we have a great BOGO. Buy one, get the second one free and free shipping. There's also a pet line called Cowboy Up. We've used it with our bull Boaz in Texas, and he was barely walking. And because of the Cowboy Up, he is now running in the fields of our ranch in Texas once again. All right, your faithful tithing supports communities and spreads nationwide and through the world. Partner with us to make a lasting difference in countless lives. Help us get to 1 billion souls. We can't do it without you. All right, those are all the updates. It's time for Rod D. Martin. Rod, welcome.
Good to be here.
Good to see you. I admire the work that you do. I mean, the threads that you put on X are so detailed. Can you give His Glory Nation your background, and we'll get into some topics of concern to everyone today?
Well, sure. I'm CEO and founder of Martin Capital. I was one of the early guys at PayPal. We do a lot of technology investing and trying to help shape the human future in a positive way. Before all of that, my first job out of law school was I was policy director for Governor Mike Huckabee, and I've done a lot of political work since, and I've also served as an officer of the executive committee of the Southern Baptist Convention.
Wow, that's pretty diversified. So what got you into, I don't know, when I first came across your threads on X, they are so meticulous and so detailed.
Well, I appreciate that. And what we're doing, of course, at rodmartin.org, we have lots of long form content, lots of deep dives and shorter pieces that hope to bring together everything that's happening in the world from a geopolitical perspective, from a Christian worldview. And it just occurred to me around the first of the year, look, Twitter's great, X these days, it's great. It's a very different audience. How can we reach this audience? And it seemed that threads were the best way to do it because the algorithm helps you and people see it more. And so I started breaking down a lot of what we do there. And of course, everything we do at rodmartin.org, the Rod Martin Report, all of that is coming from the research we would be doing anyway at Martin Capital. So we're making financial decisions based on the intelligence we're giving your readers, and they can really benefit from that, both in the free and premium versions.
So that is a very good point that you just brought up. Can you explain to the audience what the financial piece would have to do with everything else that's going on in the world?
Well, take, for instance, if you understand what's happening in China, you can make some better investing decisions. No question. There was a time when China was on the extreme upswing. Today, China is being isolated by President Trump in a pretty dramatic and thoroughgoing fashion, very much like the containment we saw of the Soviet Union, starting with George Kennan and Harry Truman. But also, China has given itself just a shocking self-inflicted wound. China's demographic picture is abysmal and really probably at this point uncurable. And it's a direct result of the evil one-child policy and the millions of forced abortions they performed. Bottom line, they have hit a total fertility rate of about 1.0. They will probably stabilize at a 0.8. And what that does to you is by the end of the century, they've lost 75% of their population. There's no good way to recover from that. And the problem is that when it starts hitting you very, very hard, because where you're losing people primarily is in the youngest generations. They're missing about 100 million working age people that they were claiming, and they've finally gotten a little more honest with their statistics. But what does that mean for housing? What does that mean for consumer purchases? What does that mean for the sustainability of an economy other than by exports, which of course is how they've built their economy, almost entirely on dumping into the West. And so they're very vulnerable right now. That creates some military dangers, but it also creates some investing opportunities, both negative and positive. And we're very attuned to that kind of detail all over the world.
Like the ghost cities that go through all of China? Is that part of it?
That's actually a perfect example because, first of all, they really believed they were going to fill them. You know, that actually was the plan. It was a somewhat fanciful plan, but that was the idea. We're going to take people from these older cities that are more run down, and we're going to move them into these show places, and isn't that awesome? That's all fine and good, but one, hasn't worked. Second, the real reason they did it was the Central Planning Board needed to boost the real estate and construction economy. So they went and did these white elephant projects all over the country that aren't producing profit, that cannot be sustained. And all they're really doing is destroying the housing market over there. This is more important than it is in the United States, because the average Chinese who has any disposable income, which is a significant number, but still the rural areas are very, very poor, very third world. The people who have money to invest for retirement or to take care of their parents have largely invested it in real estate. And real estate in China is going nowhere but down. There's no way to save it in this generation. So this is a terrible economic crisis for them. And at the same time, you have fewer and fewer people supporting a larger proportion of the population that's elderly. It's just really grim.
Well, you look at 2008 here, our housing crisis, where I had executives and banks literally tell me that they were selling, mortgaging houses in cats and dogs' names. It was so out of control. But I'm told in China, they're actually paying some people to take houses. So it's probably much worse in China today than 2008 here.
And that's not sustainable in the long term. People have indulged the illusion that China is a free market economy. China is not even slightly a free market economy in any honest sense. I mean, they have private companies, obviously, but even those are pretty much controlled by the CCP. And the CCP gets to call the shots. They've got a board member on all of those boards that actually has the final say on everything. So you have the illusion of private ownership, much as you did in Nazi Germany. By the way, you keep the illusion of private ownership, which incentivizes people to do productive things, but the state planners come back in and they try to clean up the messes that their social engineering created, and that's not sustainable in the long run.
So how does China now relate to President Trump, tariffs, and where do we sit in this, in your eyes?
Well, I think we saw everything we needed to see, and I've talked about this on Fox Business a lot, when the Chinese agreed to charge us a 10% tariff and allowed us to charge them 55%. They can talk a big game, they can run a big bluff, they can try to save face. But the bottom line is they are an export-driven economy, and America is the largest consumer market in the world. It's indispensable, it's irreplaceable. The Europeans figured out the same thing. The British figured out the same thing. There's really no escaping the fact that if they can't sell to us, they can't replace us. We're 4% of the world's population, we're 26% of the world's economy, and that's not going to change short of a nuclear war. A nuclear war wouldn't help them either because they'd still have nobody to buy their stuff. So they're actually, in some respects, at our mercy. They're a very strong country. They have a lot of power. We don't want to minimize that. But Donald Trump rightly assessed the relative power of the two countries and has exploited it pretty ruthlessly in a way that I think makes the world safer and certainly makes things fairer for the United States.
Where do you think China is now? Do you think there's a military threat of them going into Taiwan because of this right now?
Well, there is. I mean, the reality is that when you know you're in trouble, you know you've got to grab whatever you need while you can. That's part of why Putin invaded Ukraine. He knew that 20 years from now, that wouldn't even be a possibility. So, yes, there is an enhanced danger, but when we see Donald Trump deploying PRISM systems into Taiwan and into the Philippines and really taking the military piece of this seriously, it's very encouraging. And perhaps the most encouraging part is getting Japan to rearm in a way that's meaningful. Effectively, that's a foreign national guard for us, and it greatly diversifies China's military risk.
Wow. Dr. Rod D. Martin, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with him after this quick break.
Parasites slowly increase in your body over a lifetime. The mother worm lays 20 to 200,000 eggs a day. And it doesn't necessarily need to be worms. These could be microscopic. If there are any general surgeons out there, I know what you're saying. I open up the gut all the time and I don't see parasites. Because these are intracellular parasites or microscopic parasites. And they're not something that most people would see.
Where can we get parasites? From pets, your favorite sushi, doorknobs, even a simple handshake. You can't see them, but they're everywhere, even inside you. We can't avoid life, but we can fight back. Purge. Advanced Parasite Cleanse. Defend your body from the inside out. Tap into ancient wisdom for modern health. Purge is a powerful anti-parasitic blend of 19 all-natural ingredients designed to flush out invaders, boost detox, and revive your energy and focus. Order now at www.purgestore.com/hisglory or scan the QR code on your screen and get 15% off with code HISGLORY.
Your money is vanishing faster than ever before, and no one is coming to save it. But you can protect your savings starting right now, completely tax and penalty free. Goldco has helped protect billions in retirement savings with real gold and silver. At His Glory, we trust them, and today we want to send you a free gold and silver protection kit. Act now and you'll receive up to 10% in free silver. And if you have $25,000 or more in an IRA savings, Goldco will also send you a free Ronald Reagan silver coin. Supplies are limited. Scan the QR code or click the link to get your free kit today. Goldco will protect what God has entrusted to you. All right, we're back with Dr. Rod D. Martin. Let's talk about these historical Alaska, Putin and President Trump today, and then we'll talk about the state of the church as well. But what are your thoughts about this historic meeting in Alaska today?
Well, it's really encouraging. We'll see what happens. I mean, the president is certainly correct in saying that he'll know whether Putin's serious or not in a matter of minutes. If Putin isn't, this gets really ugly for him. I mean, the truth of the matter is Russia is highly dependent at this point on foreign currency earned through oil sales to primarily India and China. And if we slap them both with 100% secondary sanctions or actually, there's a bill in Congress now for up to 500% tariffs on China to force compliance with this. They simply lose all their ability to prosecute the war. And so you have that aspect of it, but you also have what is clearly the intent of the president to supply much, much more serious offensive weaponry to Ukraine if we get to that point. And so Putin really needs to make a deal here. And you saw this week, the president made clear there's not just a stick here. There's a very serious carrot. We'll come in, we'll help you develop your resources. We'll give you a license for some of the rare earths in the occupied parts of Ukraine. We'll invest American dollars in Russian infrastructure. Everybody's going to get rich. And it's exactly what he articulated in Saudi Arabia. You know, we're calling it the Trump doctrine, but he summarized it as commerce, not chaos. Everybody can get rich if they'll just have peace. And Donald Trump is the chief apostle of that position.
And by using strength. So explain to the audience how to truly be a superpower. You must have superpower in the military, but you also have to have superpower in economics, the money.
Well, that's exactly right. Russia, 20 years ago, Russia had the size economy of California, and now it's smaller than Texas. And, I mean, I'm sorry, you really can't fight the United States of America if your economy is smaller than Texas. Now, they have a bunch of nukes. God knows they have all that. We don't know if they work. We don't know how well they've been maintained in the decades since the fall of the Soviet Union. I wouldn't want to risk it. I'm not looking to, play chicken with them, but they are a much reduced power from 35 years ago. And the Beltway establishment just completely ignored that. They patronized them in the 90s and the early 2000s, and then they tried to spin them up as this global hegemonic regime. They don't have the power to do that. And honestly, the loss of their Syrian bases dramatically reduces their ability to continue the adventurism they've been engaging in the Sahel and elsewhere. They're a regional power. They're not a small regional power, but they are at most a regional power. And China is using their economic distress to basically colonize them. And Putin isn't oblivious to that. So there may be a deal to be had in Anchorage.
Wow. Yeah. And, we were talking to the break how President Trump is always 2-3 steps ahead of everyone else in the play. I got to think he's not going to go and put the world in stage in Alaska unless he's got some kind of at least a verbal deal from Putin on something. Don't you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's no sucker. And
Yep.
This is the part that, again, the pundit class completely loses track of. They put their faith in all these diplomats and politicians of their favored class. But what was the career path of most of these people? They went to college, they got a job, they ran for office. I'm sorry, that doesn't really qualify you for high stakes negotiations. Donald Trump spent an entire career making deals with developers and city governments and landowners in New York City. He knows a little bit more about the negotiating process than almost everybody else he's dealing with.
It went to Wharton School of Business, one of the best, and as you said, he's been doing it for years and years and years. He's an expert, and that's why hadn't we ever had an American president was a businessman before? Is it because it's rigged?
It just doesn't lend itself to it. I mean, the logical path to become a congressman or a senator or a governor is to go to law school and then start running for things. And I mean, a lot of people's political careers start very young. And so that's what they do. They treat it as a career, just like you would in law or in mechanical work or whatever you do. And so business people, two problems. First of all, they're busy. They're actually running a company. But second, their skill set usually doesn't translate that well to politics. And we saw that in the first term. The president was good, but he didn't know what he was doing. And he got run around the room by a bunch of these rhino and never Trump people that he hired believing they were other than they were. And they were just absolutely stabbing him in the back from the beginning. Bill Barr, Jeff Sessions, certainly Rex Tillerson, Chris Wray. Oh my gosh. You don't see any of that in the second term. I mean, he learned quickly. He had 4 years to think about it, and now he's just kicking butt. And it's amazing to watch.
Yeah, I'm curious to your thoughts with your economics background. To me, coming out of the gate with Doge and cutting off the money and then tracking the money where it's going. Now we have this Act Blue. I had President Trump's attorney on last week twice. This Act Blue, he said, is $1.6 trillion. This is going to be a bad news for Democrats and maybe some rhinos too.
Oh, it's really bad. And look, Act Blue is, I can't prove this. Maybe this isn't true. This is just my opinion based on what I look at, but that's a money laundering operation. Yeah. That's a giant foreign money laundering operation, putting a sea of cash under Democrats who otherwise wouldn't have it. And USAID clearly was the same thing. I mean, so much so that they were actually supporting U.S. media organizations for the purpose of undermining a sitting president. Well, I'm sorry, you don't get to do that with my tax dollars. That's corrupt. That's horrible. And to Kash Patel's great credit, we've already had 4 guilty pleas in a $500 million fraud through USAID. So we're making some progress on that. Building those cases takes a little while, but this president understands the left has spent the last 90 years redlining the system to funnel money to themselves, and he's cutting it off. And if they have to compete even, they're going to lose.
That's right. What on the world stage are you looking at right now? What do you think the next moves on the world chessboard are?
Well, I think we're going to see the conclusion of the trade policy. We're going to see that go very well to some degree in the short term. That's contingent on what happens in Alaska, because if we have to hit India and China with secondary sanctions, that's going to slow things down a little bit. But I think we can get to a great trade deal all around. I think the president's extremely committed to a containment policy with regard to China that he hasn't really articulated, but it's evident in everything he's doing. I think if we can get over this immediate hump with India, we strengthen that relationship. We're already seeing that with the Quad. I wouldn't be shocked if we could get to a point where we were doing kind of an AUKUS deal with India, but we're going to have to significantly increase American shipyard capacity even to keep our deal with Australia. So there are some issues there. Nevertheless, the president has said publicly he's very committed to achieving that. So I think we see a strengthening of our defense position overall. This new deal with NATO to increase to 5% of GDP for defense spending throughout the alliance is huge. I mean, that effectively increases NATO's defenses by about 250%. So, we're going to be much more secure. And by rebalancing trade, we're going to have a much stronger economy, and not just us, but our trade partners. This is the part that gets missed. If their markets are opened to American goods, they will thrive from that. And if our markets are open to them, they already are thriving from that. And everything is more sustainable if the United States is actually able to balance its checkbook, which, we haven't been doing for about 70 years. So this is all looking really strong. I think we could potentially, the big, beautiful bill being passed, the tax cuts being permanent, all the different things that are coming into play here, Doge, all of it, I think we could get to a point where we're paying down the national debt in a really meaningful way before the end of Trump's term. And that's before you even get to anything like Golden Dome, or the Golden Dome 2.0 version that's going to be laser-based, or, Earth-to-Earth Starship. In 20 years' time, we'll be able to move an entire armored division anywhere in the world in an hour. And, and Elon really is going to colonize Mars, and we're really going to mine asteroids. And the golden age is here. That's the problem, though. The left wants to turn it into a dark age. And they nearly did. If they had won this last election, we wouldn't be having this discussion. We would be shut down, canceled. Nobody could hear us. I don't know that we'd be in a camp, but they'd want us in one. Exactly. And we're dealing with real totalitarians now. We have to beat them. And Donald Trump is doing the things necessary to give us a fighting chance to do that.
Rod, we have a minute left. What are your thoughts to the church today? Where's the church sit in all of this?
Well, obviously, the church is the most important thing in the world. The church takes forth the gospel of Jesus Christ, who is the Son of God, the second person of the Trinity, the creator of all that is. He came in the flesh and died to pay for my sins, and anyone who acknowledges that and places their faith and trust in him can be saved and actually adopted as a child of God the Father. So the church is just vital. We have some problems in the American church. There's a lot of wokeness. The culture has influenced the church in a lot of cases more than the church has influenced the culture. But I think we're turning the corner on some of that. Ironically, Donald Trump is having a very positive effect on that. And I think we've got a real chance to see a great awakening in this country over the next decade or two.
I truly believe that the golden age is for the church as well, to preach the gospel, to get this billion soul harvest that his glory is out promoting across the world. So, Rod, thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure.